been revealed that weapons sent into Jordan by the CIA and Saudi Arabia for Syrian rebels have been repeatedly stolen and then they've been sold on the black market. And this is according to a new report. It's based on testimonies of American and Jordanian officials that were given to the New York Times and Al Jazeera. And here is what the black market has now been flooded with due to the theft. The CIA Saudi shipment, in accordance with the Arm and Train programme, included Kalashnikov rifles, mortars and rocket-propelled grenades worth millions of dollars. But the Jordanian officers who were part of the corrupt scheme were reportedly spending the proceeds on buying SUVs, iPhones and other luxury items. For more, let's cross over to RT's correspondent Gani Chichikan. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Gani, what has been the response then from US officials to the revelations?
Neil, so an investigative report comes out saying millions of dollars worth of weapons the CIA and Saudi Arabia sent to armed Syrian rebels were systematically stolen and sold on the black market in Jordan, and U.S. officials say nothing. The report itself cites unnamed U.S. and Jordanian officials with sources in the FBI saying they believe some of the stolen weapons were used in a shooting that killed 2 Americans and 3 others in November at a police training facility in Jordan. Jordan has been a key post from where the CIA and other intelligence services have provided weapons and training for the Syrian rebels. The White House didn't have anything more to say on the subject than go to the State Department. Here.
In terms of the International Police Training Center, that is a center that has been stood up to promote training for the Jordanians and international security forces. That's a center that's supported by our State Department. So if you have questions about that center, the State Department would be point for you on that.
We went to the State Department and it stonewalled all questions on the consequences of covert weapon supplies. Here.
We have no comment on that report. There is an ongoing investigation.
The CIA does not comment either on its covert transfers of weapons, and yet it is a U.S. government policy. Who else should we ask about this?
As I said, I have no comment on that.
It's not the only red flag out there. For example, last September, the Pentagon acknowledged that the Syrian rebels that it trained gave at least a quarter of their weapons cache to Al-Nusra. How many red flags do there have to be for the U.S. to stop arming rebels?
So we're going to leave it where I left it. Matt?
She was touching on a really good point.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why the U.S. government should be in the business of providing weapons to anyone who is not a part of a nation state's military? Because it seems every time that some rebel group gets its hands on U.S. provided weapons, they end up in the wrong hands. They end up being sold for, whatever, on the black market. Is this something that U.S. foreign policy and military policy really should even be considering?
I know you'd like a comment on it, Roz. I just can't.
So U.S. officials refuse to answer whether the weapons ending up in the hands of extremists is a consequence that the U.S. is willing to accept in order to prop up rebel forces in Syria.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Never has listening to nothing been so interesting, in fact. Many thanks, Gani Chichikanda. We also spoke to writer and author Abdel Bari Atwan about those recent revelations.
This revelation proves that, the American policies in Syria is in shambles. It's chaos. Then corruption is the name of the game. It's not, it's not the first time. Definitely, some of these arms would go to the Islamic State or actually other radical Islamic organization. And to see some Jordanian intelligence officers are indulged in this kind of corruption, I think this is actually more shocking. The problem is when these kind of weapons actually fall to the wrong hands, it could be devastating. And that's what is happening when many people warn that, any American sophisticated weapons like, anti-aircraft missiles will fall to the hands of the radical organization. I believe this warning was absolutely correct.
The new revelations on the dysfunctional CIA Arm and Train program for Syrian rebels comes as relations between the US-backed groups in the country get even more complicated.
The Syrian Kurdish militia, the YPG, and the Free Syrian Army both have a common enemy, ISIL. They also have a common friend, the US. It seems they should be allies, but that's not the case. The two groups have been fighting each other since 2012, and now the conflict between them has escalated and risks becoming even more bloody with US weapons in their hands. In a recent clash, the Free Syrian Army fired a TOW missile at a YPG position. If the two groups that are supposed to be helping Washington against ISIL are busy fighting each other, who is going to battle the terrorists?
There are two different programs, one run by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, another one run by the Pentagon. The Pentagon one seems to have been a bit of a disaster. They supplied a lot of weapons to the rebels who basically were defeated when they first entered into the country, and the rebels went into, the weapons went into the hands of hardline Islamists. The CIA seems to be more with the Islamist groups, and there's some allegations that they're actually working with the Jabhat al-Nusra, the Nusra Front, which is the affiliate of al-Qaeda in Syria. So if you want one word to sum up US policy in Syria, it's confusion.